Hello and welcome to the Traxion Sim Racing Podcast, Episode 0, a pilot episode. I'm Tom. This is Tom.
I'm not Tom.
Yes,
Finally got
John.
something different. I've come in to annoy you guys on the podcast.
Some diversity. And this episode, like I say, it's a pilot. It's a news-style magazine format, some might say, of what's been hot in sim racing over the past few weeks, and also looking forward to what we're working on and what's coming up soon. We're going to have a nice round table discussion. The table's rectangular though, got that wrong.
Maybe that's an investment for the future.
Yeah. And this episode is in partnership with Elgato. Also, we don't have a name yet. So, we'd like to hear your opinions. What should this show be called in the future, which is currently going to happen once a month. So, traxion.gg/Discord.
Yes.
Or email podcast@TraxionGG for your suggestions on the name, but also topics we can talk about in the future. And I need a drink of water.
Traction control.
Traction control with the
There we
X.
go. That's not bad.
Yeah.
We'll start off
We'll
with
put
that.
it on the list.
That's on the list. Traction control.
We might come up with some ideas and some of your ideas and put them in a poll as well at some point.
I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the episode now.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget the podcast. We'll just have a name,
Yeah.
a name brainstorm,
So,
a name storm.
to kick off, we are going to touch upon some important topics, right?
We've been busy.
Should sports games that are tied to motorsport be released every year? What's Corsair going to do with Fanatec? And some others. But before then, a quick roundup of what's been happening at Traxion. And you may have seen that the regular Traxion podcast has returned. Tom's been doing some amazing interviews with some incredible guests recently.
And you've joined me for a few of them too.
That's very true, yeah.
Yep. It's been very busy. We've been very busy at TraxionGG. The articles that have been pumped out on the website, there's so many. It's like a continual stream of articles. It's incredible. Obviously, I've only joined TraxionGG very recently, and to see the amount of articles that have come out on the site has been impressive. But we've also been doing the podcast, which is once a week. Thank God, because they are exhausting.
Yeah, a lot of time, effort, and research and editing that goes into that.
But we've been very lucky. We had Romain Grosjean, which, I'll be honest, was a bit of a bucket list item. I remember coming out of my spare room and my girlfriend was like, "Who are you on the phone to?" And I was like, Romain Grosjean. Wasn't on the phone. It was a podcast. Don't ask. It's all good.
It's great that he just chats so casually about sim racing as well. You know, like I listened to that podcast the other day and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was like he was really grateful that he wasn't just down to talk about his crash once again. You know, he was actually just talking about completely unrelated stuff, and he's so invested in it. So
He absolutely loves it. And there was a really nice little tidbit from that episode that the first time he ever experienced Laguna Seca was on the TOCA 2 game.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? You think when he's like a not old and bold. I mean, he's not that old, right? But like an established racing driver like Romain Grosjean, you might assume that the gaming element of it has passed them by because sim racing is a relatively new phenomenon. But when he was talking about Laguna Seca, my first time I experienced that was in the TOCA 2 game. I was like, that's kind of wild. And he was like, once he played on the TOCA 2 game, he really wanted to go and race it. And well, little did he know he would be.
he turned out all right.
Yeah, he did okay. Survived the fireball.
I didn't mention it.
Correct. No,
yeah,
no,
I didn't mention it. A lot of people in the Discord were asking when we obviously go out to the Discord and say, "We've got this guest. Send us your questions." Obviously, the fire was asked for a lot, but I thought, you know what, he's told that story, and it's a sim racing podcast, and it's happened now.
Yeah.
Although I did notice when I was doing my research on Romain Grosjean, there's a lot of Phoenix emblems and logos now that he seems to have adopted. So he has embraced it. So yeah, that was great.
Also, if I could just interject, this is the level of nerdery we got at Traxion. Because was it TOCA 2?
I think it was TOCA World Tour.
I think it was World Touring Cars.
Which is the one after, right?
The one after, yeah.
Because that had Laguna Seca. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think he meant TOCA World Tour. But,
so
yeah.
Also in America, that had a different name. It was called something or other stock car racing.
Right.
So let us know in the comments on YouTube which TOCA game or TOCA game
if you don't correct him, it's one of those guys is going to correct him anyway.
I'm either going to have to up my nerdery game to earn my space on this seat, or I'm going to represent all of those who could only dream of the levels of nerddom that we're going to achieve.
I should have said like this. Oh, it was TOCA World Tour.
Actually.
Anyway. So another person you had a conversation with, though, which was fantastic, I thought, well done, was Andre Eriksson, CEO and founder of Istec Sim Sports, and we got a nice exclusive out of that.
Which we weren't expecting.
No.
So we went to Gamescom, and we knew that we were going to be looking at the new Invicta wheel, which we knew that there'd be an embargo on that, and that there'd be a lot of information that was coming soon that we're not allowed to talk about yet. But then in the podcast, we thought, well, we'll just do a quick 20 minutes, we'll talk about it. And I'd spoken to him at Sim Racing Expo a couple of years ago, and I thought, what a nice time to just kind of reflect on where Aztec has come from. Because remember, it was only a couple of Sim Racing Expos ago where they were just a set of pedals in the corner of someone else's booth. And now they bring a sim racing circus to Expo every year, and they've got 3 product lines, kind of like small, medium, large, if you like, or gold, silver, bronze, however you want to describe it, with the Prima, Forte, and Invicta. And then just casually during the interview, he's like, oh yeah, and we're going to bring out a new product line that's going to sit below the Forte, below the Prima, and we're going to be, kind of going for that CSL DD market. And I was like, pardon?
Which is fantastic.
Nobody was expecting that.
Well, we'll touch more on the steering wheel hardware market later on, because it's very topical what you mentioned and what's going on there. And then the final point on the podcast is, after this episode, coming up next is
Alex Jakes, which was another bucket list item.
My favourite Formula 1 contemporary commentator by a long stretch. So.
Yes, he was absolutely fantastic. And I have to admit that you did all the research for that. It was a very, very busy week.
Teamwork.
And you sent a document and said, I've got some ideas for the podcast. What do you think? And I was just like, yep, that will do. And it was fantastic. And it was, he's such a lovely guy, very open. He was very keen to talk about sim racing. We spoke about how he treats every race, whether it's Formula 1, GP2, or sim racing, exactly the same, with the same enthusiasm, because he loves racing. And he also made a point about the drivers who have done all of the prep and have committed their life to this moment deserve the respect of the commentator. And it doesn't matter if it's sim racing or real racing, which I thought was really interesting. And we did some kind of comparisons between some sim racing commentators or other commentators who have kind of ventured into sim racing and perhaps haven't shown it the same respect. And of course, we kind of went through his journey with sim racing commentators who might aspire to become real world commentators in mind, and he kind of gave some tips about how he got there and whatnot. But it was great, and obviously you ask him all the questions like, what was your favourite moment, how do you do a race start, and all this sort of stuff. And it was I really enjoyed that conversation. It was fantastic. So that's coming out this week.
Yeah, next week.
Sorry, yes, because this is coming out.
This is coming out this week.
It's very confusing.
So this is coming out this week, so it's going to come out next week, but I recorded it last week.
7 days from now, before we get into podcast section.
Yeah, and then hopefully we have a lot of exciting podcasts coming up. But we can't talk about them yet, because we don't know what they're going to be yet. Well, we might know some. But.
Yeah. Well, things are in the works, so stay tuned. So away from podcasts, John has been playing Le Mans Ultimate.
I have.
And at the time of you watching this,
Yep.
we can tell the world what we thought of the beta version of the co-op mode. Let's briefly touch upon that. Any good?
It is good, but it's good in principle, but it needs a little bit of work, right? So I think we were obviously playing an early version of a beta of a mode that's for a game that's in early access.
Yeah,
so
it's like a lot of Russian doll, isn't it, or something? What's a beta within early access?
An early version of a beta. Yeah, anyway, but it clearly has potential as a mode. We encountered some issues, some glitches, right, with it, but in principle, the fundamental bit worked. It just needs to be clean when it actually comes into reality, and I think we need to spend a bit more time on it to play it properly. So hopefully those of you at home that have now had the update for a while have been trying it out, and let us know your thoughts down below. Check out the full video as well if you want to see what I thought of it the first time around and all the new content as well. But yeah, I think it's the same story with LMU in general, right? It's lots of potential, a really cool feature, a great game with great driving, but it's still just a bit of a mess, and there's still holes in it that need to be filled, and they're just still not much closer to a full release, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I had a great fun. This co-op mode can be really innovative for sim racing. It's not quite there yet. It's very much prototype stage. And check out this for a smooth segue. A place you would go to see things in prototype stages is the ADAC Sim Racing Expo in Dortmund, Germany.
I thought you were going to talk about the prototype cars.
Good. That would have been better.
No.
But we'll
get better at segues. This is episode 0.
But the Sim Racing Expo, we're going. We are the official media partner as Traxion.
Very exciting.
Our sibling company, Gridfinder, also has a stand there as well, and Traxion will be present on there.
Yes.
There'll be some cool things going on, and it means that we're going to go and live in Dortmund. Which I never thought I would say for a week.
For a long time.
Yes.
On a ferry and then in Dortmund.
And get a ferry and drive across with a couple of cars full of equipment in the back. But there's a lot going on.
Yes, so we have a booth right by the stage, and we're going to have 12 sim rigs, and on those sim rigs we're going to have all sorts of activations going on. So we have the EA F1 Creator Series who are going to come and do an exhibition race, and they're all going to be streaming using their Elgato kit to their Twitches and YouTubes. We're going to have Potato Nation done by the streamer Lawrence de Souza, who a lot of you will know. They're doing a community race. We've got IMSA doing an event. We've got Williams F1 Esports doing an event. We're going to have 8 beanbags around the place with TVs to play Trackmania, which we've just added to Grid Finder. So we're going to have a Trackmania activation going on. There's a lot. We're also going to be doing interviews and bits and pieces from there. We've got a big video screen where we're going to be showing all the race highlights and blah, 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 blah. And, of course, TraxionGG will be on the stage for half an hour on one of the days of the expo.
I don't know yet.
And we're going to do a quiz. We're going to do a live, interactive quiz from the stage, which you can take part in if you're there or if you're at home. So you can go onto the QR code that we put up and you can do a live quiz and there will be prizes. So it's going to be really, really fun. It's going to be exhausting. These things, the after parties start at bang on 5 o'clock. As soon as 5 o'clock hits, either it's Acetec or Fanatec just get out crates and crates and crates of beer, and the whole thing just descends into drinking.
We'll be running back to the hotel. And
you guys are being very much like Gamescom.
We'll be working. We have already got an invite, which I haven't told you about, for a meal on the Saturday.
Oh,
okay.
So we'll discuss that. And I wonder what the quiz prizes might be.
They could be a number of things.
Anyway, also, if you're considering visiting the Sim Racing Expo, people can save how much on a ticket?
5%.
5%. We'll put the
Glad
details
I got that right. Jeez, it's been on the website for like weeks.
So we've got lots of exciting plans. Stay tuned on the website. And we all need to organise ourselves. John's never been to the Sim Racing Expo.
I was going to say, I've never been before.
You've never been?
I've never been before.
Wow.
I've always been busy.
That's why it's not
away.
true sim racing.
It's like
no investment in sim racing.
It's like the sim racing Hajj. You know, you have to make your pilgrimage to Mecca.
You could say that I've been saving it for a special moment.
Yes, you've been waiting for it to be in Dortmund.
I want it to be really exciting. If I go every year, I want to save it. So
Yeah, no,
hopefully see you there for the first time if you've not been too.
Yeah, come and say hello to us if you see us.
Yeah.
And then our final sort of what's going on in the world of Traxion and what's coming up soon point is EA Sports WRC. This is the official game of the FIA World Rally Championship. It came out in the end of 2023 with the 2023 season in it. But obviously we're in 2024, right? And they are releasing an expansion pack. So we will be doing something on the Traxion website, maybe a video, undecided, depends on when access is sorted, about that with our opinions. We had a quick chat this morning, TBC, but we'll be doing something. And that leads us on to our first talking point, let's say, of the episode. The first debate.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Civilized discussion.
And this sets a precedent, or could set a precedent for me, which is every year, EA Sports traditionally, if it's a sports franchise, it comes out every 12 months. EA Sports FC 25 has just came out recently at the time of recording. A lot of hype about that. There's the Formula 1 game, F1 24 this year, was a bit of a subdued year, but it's there on a yearly basis.
Release,
F1 Manager comes out on a yearly basis. In the past, I was going to say
Madden.
NASCAR, but Madden.
Great racing game.
Great racing game. However, for WRC, it's a paid-for expansion. We don't know the price yet for the 2024 season. And we don't know yet, but it might lead to a full game in 2025.
Yeah.
And one other game that does that at the minute is the World of Outlaws, which is a dirt racing oval game in America. It's a real world championship. It came out in 2022. For 2023, it was a DLC. And then just last month, 2024 came out as a full game. So, long-winded way of saying, do we think that that is the model going forward, or is there still a place for racing games within the niche to have a yearly release?
I think this is something we've banged on about for quite a while. We're in various discussions. Biannual releases do make a lot of sense on paper. I think that people don't necessarily want to part with money every single year for what is essentially almost the same game, because a year in the game development world is nothing. So it's very difficult to make big progress in a year. Yeah. That's why with EA Sports F1, you've got 2 teams, right? You've got a team working on one game, so they're essentially doing it biannually with 2 teams. That's why the story mode is in 21 and 23. Something else will be in 22 and 24, or whichever way around it is.
Call of Duty has different studios.
Exactly. So for me, it's something that kind of happens but isn't signalled that way as it stands. I think it makes a lot of sense because you've got the fundamentals of a good game. 2 years is more time to develop new features and actually make it a worthwhile jump from one to the other. And it just means for people that want the new content and are willing to spend a bit of money but don't want to buy a whole other game when they're still not quite finished their career mode on the previous game, it's more time. So in principle, to me, it sounds like a good idea, but I'm not the one selling the games.
Yes. Do you think the shareholders would accept it? That's the
Well,
thing.
is it going to be free, though? Let's be fair. There is going to be some
No, it's
element
always paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
So
not
there's
full
always going to be
game.
some element of DLC or some kind of subscription involved, or some kind of season pass with in-game purchases. I mean, it's never going to be free. It's either every year you get a new game, and then that's your game for the year, or there's going to be some kind of other monetization model that's involved, right? So
I don't necessarily mind that if it's, let's say, instead of £60 though, it's 20, 30. It seems more palatable from a consumer point of view.
yeah, and I guess, the one thing that always sticks in my mind is iRacing. iRacing, everybody complains about the subscription model, and you have to buy the cars, and you have to buy the tracks, and yet it has one of the largest player bases in the sim racing genre, and it has one of the most loyal fan bases, and it has the most successful esports series that are continually viewed and participated in. I think the recent, was it the Daytona 24, had like 50,000 people or something taking part in it, right? So people will pay for quality. And so perhaps if you can achieve the sort of quality that we, well, because this is it, because you could get worst of both worlds, right? You could get every year you get like a subscription or a DLC, but the quality is not as good, and then people go, what we're paying for skins, right? We're just paying for so that, the 2024 SRO skins comes out for ACC, and it's like an extra 15, 20 quid, but the game is exactly the same. So there's risks involved with it. And I am kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here because I do think it's a good idea, but I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Like, why would it not work? I can't really.
Well, I've got a reason why I think it won't work. Yeah. And it's that the licensors might not want it. Yeah. You might be beholden as a game company no, you have to have that game released on the shelf in time for Christmas, or you have no license.
For example, if you're Mazda, and you gave away the license to the MX-5 for the rookie series in iRacing, God knows when there were 4.5 people playing on it. Yeah. Are you now looking at it going, ooh, I'm not sure we got enough money for that license for that Mazda that's turned over 10 billion laps by now?
Behind the scenes, I'm working on a piece about the rising costs of game licensing. I'm not going to go into it now. I think we should discuss that further on the next episode of the Traxion Unnamed News podcast thing.
It's a great name.
Because I need to write the article first. But it is a key, the licensing cost is a key factor of all these decisions, right?
The stuff that we don't see in public, right?
Yeah, because it might be, okay, we can, the contract allows us to do a biannual release and some DLC, but the cost of the licensing means that if we don't earn enough revenue in that off year, it doesn't work out. Yeah. So I think we're in a key stage now where WRC and World of Outlaws might be a test case to then use to other motorsports and say, racing's pretty niche, it costs a lot to license, these guys worked it.
Well, I think it's probably fair to say that sim racing as a genre is behind mainstream gaming and esports. Yeah. Generally. I wouldn't say, as much as we love sim racing, that's why we're here, we wouldn't say that we're the tip of the spear when it comes to gaming. And so it's likely that we will just follow the trends that the rest of gaming is set, right? And it seems to be going that way. It's more subscription model and in-game ads as well.
That could be a thing. Actually, Codemasters were pioneers of that in the Dirt games. They were like, all the banners were changing live.
I think it's also a thing of where, in sim racing, if you're talking about an official series, every year feels like a reset point anyway. So like, the season, the calendar finishes, the championship's over, reset, new teams, new liveries, new look, new calendar. Whereas in other game industries, that doesn't necessarily happen. Like, for example, Call of Duty, you're not going to get that sort of cyclical thing. So it changes the whole concept. So, and at the moment, it seems like we've got two extremes, where you've got a game that just sits there and gets updated every year. Your iRacings, or your R-Factor 2 for a long time, your Assetto Corsa, an ACC now. And then you've got a game...
contemporary reference.
Yes, well, that's the thing, right? It's like, now it's getting a bit older, but even a few years ago, they were still getting updated, or last year. Race Room, ACC gets yearly update, all the new liveries. And then you've got games that come out every year. So in my head, it's like, something in the middle is going to work in some capacity.
We'll be watching this closely. I think it's a good idea in principle. But if there's no WRC new game next year and afterwards, then we know it didn't work. So we'll find out. But the one small thing I would like to mention is that the game is not going to be replaced by a whole new game, but digitally they're going to repackage the original one with the DLC in a bundle and call it EA Sports WRC 24.
Interesting.
Even though it's not a new game.
Interesting.
So again, there's another element of
so you can jump on the bandwagon
if you're new
at any
or
time.
and you think it's a new
that
game.
makes sense. That makes sense. 'Cause otherwise, you might put people off if the game came out in 2024 and it says release date 2024 and it's now 2028, and you're like, well, I'll just look for a newer game. But actually, what you don't realise is this is just as far ahead, if not further, than the other games, because they're continually building on top of all the lessons that they've learned from the 4 years of testing or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think that repackage is for the likes of us and maybe most of our listeners. But if you're browsing the store for
kids at Christmas,
new racing game or rally, it's there.
Yeah,
and we saw it for a company we used to be affiliated with. That at the start of every NASCAR season, even if the game was really old, 10x sales.
Yeah,
because it's the hype of the new season.
Yeah.
So.
True.
And also, final point on this, I think, I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay.
That the all-new NASCAR game that comes out next year, I think it might go to a similar model like this. Where for 26 it might be DLC, because that's what iRacing did with the World of Outlaws.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
I think it makes sense.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm on board with that prediction.
Moving away slightly, temporarily, we're going to have a segment, as it stands, in this monthly podcast, to talk about wider culture. So automotive culture, TVs, movies, motorsport, because I think that all feeds in and we all like such things, right? And the first one is the demise, or retirement, let's say, of Jeremy Clarkson,
The demise
James
happened
May.
years ago.
Yeah, the demise happened years ago, and Richard Hammond, right? So the Grand Tour has ended. Actually, it hasn't ended. They've left the show.
Oh.
And it is going to be continued with new hosts.
I mean, because that's worked.
So let's talk about that first of all. What, do you think that will?
I didn't realise that.
Yes,
I didn't realise.
This is confirmed.
The trailer. So the trailer nearly made me cry. That music when it came on.
Yes.
I think I watched the trailer about 4 or 5 times.
Same.
Before it came out, and it really got me in the feels. It was it was kind of sad to watch, but I did get the impression based on that trailer this was it. But
yes.
I think, for all intents and purposes, those guys leaving the Grand Tour means the Grand Tour is over. Like, come up with a new name, a new concept, but it's going to be really tough to try and. I mean, Top Gear just didn't work, unless I'm mistaken. I've never seen an episode of Top Gear that wasn't
since they left. There's been odd highlights, in my opinion. I've watched every single one.
Right, okay. I've seen some news stories about crashes.
Yeah.
But I've never... Even that
has
not led me to go and watch it.
I think it's really sad at the minute in the UK, and actually both shows are global, that there isn't, at the minute, like a premier car culture show, because it inspired...
It's about Fifth Gear.
Yeah, that's got a new series at the minute, and I watched the first episode. It's pretty decent, but it doesn't break through, does it?
Yeah.
No one, people who didn't like cars watched Grand Tour and Top Gear.
Yes.
And it also inspired me to do this job in a roundabout way, because for all their tomfoolery and buffoonery, messing around, I messed up the words there. There was a portmanteau of 2 words
great
there.
Tom word.
Buffoonery, Skylarking.
Buffoonery is what's
yourself there.
Underneath it was that the words mattered more than anything, right? If you watch a Clarkson car review of Top Gear, it's all, I'm cutting off a leg of a doll, or comparing it to a pack of eggs, I don't know.
Did either of those things happen?
The first one definitely did.
Oh, okay. Because if that one hadn't happened, that would be a bit strange.
No. It was trying to say that the B&W 1 Series didn't have enough room in the back, and so you have to cut your legs off to get in the back. Something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, those
Very
analogies.
literal.
Very literal, but, there's a lot of thought and script writing going into that.
Yeah.
And that inspired me. I don't know about you.
Oh, 100%. So I'm one of these people that I'd bought loads of episodes of Top Gear on my iPod Touch back in the day. I've watched.
My God! Buy stuff on iTunes.
Yeah. I've watched I've watched every single episode of the Top Gear when they were the hosts, and
even with
I
the Jason Daw.
And when it went a bit more crazy towards the end, I still enjoyed a lot of elements of it. But for me, the authentic cheap car challenges and specials were just unbeatable, because it was about them as well as the cars. But they still had the love of cars at the core. I thought, despite it being about them, it was also about the cars. And it was hugely inspirational. I mean, I think a lot of YouTube channels nowadays take that. I mean, not to say this right now, because I don't think we were doing this 3-person format because of that. But so many channels, I think, are heavily inspired by here's 3 people. Let's talk about something. Let's make it fun and go on a road trip or do this and do that. And even in sim racing, a lot of the editing styles and the decisions on doing certain challenges
and the vocabulary
hugely inspired by those shows. And I would say I've definitely been inspired. And if you have, therefore Traxion is heavily inspired by them.
And also, I watch a car YouTube channel called Auto Alex. It's now become a network.
Yeah.
And they do basically the cheap car challenges. It's in their own inimitable style, but that's filled the gap for me. But it's still not the same.
I remember, so in the very, very early days of the Sim Sundays podcast, back when it was on Grid Finder, we thought about could you do a sim racing Top Gear, and we tried it.
Right, interesting.
And so what we did is we did like the interview portion for about 30, 45 minutes.
That was inspiration.
And then we would get on track with the person. So we had our good friend Mike Yao from AK Esports would be in the background, and he would stream me and Chris, who used to co-host Sim Sundays with me, and the guest sim racing around. So we would get them to choose it. So you choose the sim, the car, the track, and then there would be a bit of a story why they've chosen that. And then we would invite people along to come and do the racing with us. And that was the idea behind it, is we could do some challenges and we could do some fun races, we could do some Wreckfest. And I remember the first and only time I've ever done oval racing was with Jeff McConey, who owns McConey Setup Shop. That's an oval dirt focused iRacing setup shop. We did dirt, and it was fun. And I'd set the server up wrong, so we were dirt oval racing in the dark. And I was like, but it was really fun. But it was just an absolute pain to keep setting up. But I mean, maybe there's space for a sim racing Top Gear podcast.
I think a lot of people try it anyway, though, without even realizing it necessarily, because it's just naturally like what a lot of people grew up with. You gravitate towards that style anyway.
Yeah,
and it's
it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, we all wanted challenges, right?
I think we need to touch upon just quickly, if any favourite moments from this trio's era. I mean, I actually go to the Winter Olympics episode.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, the mini down the ski jump.
The mini down the ski jump, the Suzuki Swift. The first time they did car football in Igos was pretty good as well. That's old school.
I think some of the early cheap car challenges with the Starion, the BMW turning into
that is
the
a
grass
fantastic
rallying,
one.
and the Jag.
Yeah.
For me, not the Botswana I can't say Botswana special with Oliver was amazing, but for me the one that was the best,
which is the callback,
was the first double header special, which is when they went and discovered the source of the River Nile. That African special for me was
interesting.
for me it was the perfect blend.
James May fell over, didn't he?
I don't know if he fell over in that one.
He hit his head, didn't he?
That was a different one. That was a Middle Eastern special, I think. But basically, in this one, they tried to find the source of the Nile, but for me, it was the perfect blend of scripted, funny things happening and the actual plot. But amongst that, it felt unscripted and very natural. And there was just so many funny moments that for me were completely off the cuff.
Yeah.
And I cried laughing watching it. And I think that and the next few specials that came after that.
Vietnam was a good one.
Vietnam was incredible.
Clarkson said he hated it.
Bolivia was
really
good.
But it's a fantastic episode.
It is very, very, very
It's fun watching him hate it.
Yeah, exactly that.
For me, it's the moments when they are crying of laughter with something that happened, like the British, the one where they went to they had the rover and the door fell off when they filled it with water. Those kind of moments, not scripted, but they were crying, laughing.
A lot of Rover fans were very unhappy about that. But I thought it's fantastic.
Are there a lot of Rover fans?
It was
have
the
you been
door.
on the internet and forums?
It was also when he opened the door of the car in the car park, and the inside of the door stayed on. That happened to me with my first car as well.
Oh, really?
But watching them see it and then just cry on the floor laughing, that's peak for me.
I really enjoyed the North Pole one as well.
Argentina?
Yeah.
Controversial.
Amazing.
Very controversial.
Amazing episode.
But there were
I
so
should
many
believe them.
jokes that came from that one episode that they would then tell for years and years and years after that.
The number plate off.
My other, I think, a favourite era, I'm going to call it an era of Top Gear when I was a kid, was the caravan bashing days, where every other episode seemed to be destroying a caravan in some new creative way.
That was like their early season version of like the messing around that they do with explosions now.
Yeah,
that was their low budget, let's
go get a
BTCC
caravan
racing,
and crash it. That's basically it. That'll fill 10 minutes and everyone will love it. And we did.
Yeah, lapped it up. Well, I think we need to touch very briefly on One for the Road, which is the final Grand Tour episode.
Yes.
And John is going to depart.
I am. I'm
mild
saving
spoiler warning.
I'm saving it to watch it with my sister because we've been watching the Grand Tour for ages together. So I want to see the last episode together. So I'm gonna leave.
How much did you cry? Or did you? Or not? I felt emotional at the end.
I felt very emotional. Yeah. I felt very much. I didn't cry.
Okay.
And I would admit if that.
It was with a heavy heart.
It was with a really heavy heart. It was because it kind of, not to get too deep, right? But it was a real stark reminder that everything ends.
Yeah.
And I suddenly felt like, this is really deep now, but I suddenly felt like, God, I'm 32. I'm old. And it was like one of those, I'm never gonna be looking ahead.
If you feel old at 32, I don't know how I feel.
No, but the episode made me feel old. And obviously, I'm looking forward to, in the comments, if you're older than me, then feel free to say 32 is younger than me, and therefore, I get it, right?
Yes. Let's not mention that Ross is 40.
Sorry, Ross. So yeah, it just kind of gives you that very stark reminder that like everything will eventually end. There is a last of everything, including like one's self. And I remember watching it, being like, oh god, is this the first thing that I'm going to remember ending? And so in 20 years' time, it will be like thinking back across my life.
True.
It's like, do you remember Top Gear?
Yeah.
Oh, Top Gear, yeah, God. I used to always watch. Do you know what? It was just a very like final moment. How about you?
I thought it was really well done, and I thought they hammed it up a little bit, but it felt genuine enough, and it was.
Oh, it totally was.
They totally went back to I think it was Botswana,
the tree,
and
the little cuts, the montage between.
So they got the BBC footage. Amazon wasn't precious.
I was surprised by that actually.
Yeah,
I remember thinking that, like, hang on a minute, this is BBC, because famously it wasn't a particularly like joyful departure.
I was listening to an interview on the drive here actually with Andy Willman, who is the fourth member, let's say, and there's a fifth called Richard Porter, I think, who writes most of the scripts and does car research, and he was saying how Amazon's been really cool in terms of if you want as much BBC footage, we'll buy it and put it in there because we're not precious about that. And I also thought it was amazing. I thought, they're doing the whole cars into trains again. I was a bit like, ugh. But then the sight of them. Sorry, there's a Triumph Stag. There's a train going across that bridge.
Yes.
It's spectacular.
Yeah.
It's like amazing. And
their choice of cars was
weird.
I was expecting to see like the classic from season 3 or the absolute but they they had the car that was
exactly the two that were originally there from Top Gear. They found them.
Yes,
great callback as well.
Yeah, and I got the impression that was real.
Same,
because there's a lot of scripted moments and you can see but this wasn't one of those, I don't think, and it was so it was a fitting end. Yeah,
it didn't ruin it. They've ended it on their own terms, kind of.
Should we invite John back?
Yeah, John, let's talk sim racing again. Right, well, time for our next topic. Before then, it's episode 0, and we've been filming a while.
We've been banging on.
Yeah. Let us know if you want this long form, short form. It's a podcast, so it's always going to be longer than a just normal video, but keen for your feedback. So, on YouTube, let us know in the comments. If you're listening to us on Spotify and Apple, let us know as a comment on the website.
Or join the Discord.
Oh, yeah,
go to TraxionGG/Discord and send us a DM being like, can you just keep it snappy?
Just hurry up.
You're banging on. You're all over the place. It's a mess.
You should see the uncut version, anyway.
So, second main topic that's sim racing related is there such thing as a finished game or sim anymore?
I'm going to throw that straight back at you. Should there be?
Well, yes, I think there should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, moving on.
Done. No, I'll clarify that. I think if it's a live service game from the offset, then it's never finished and press on. If it's like it's going to sound old-fashioned, especially for those playing on PC predominantly, but boxed games are still a thing. And if it's on PC or PlayStation or Xbox, and it's like here's a thing, I think I don't mind the odd patch, but I'd like at £70 or whatever to be a bit more polished than recent ones. Specific example, Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, which I think there are many pressures as they had to release it. They had all these pre-orders. It'd been 6 years in development already, but it needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of work still.
I would argue, given that in 2024, or even let's say the last 5-6 years, it's been possible to update games and even add features.
Yep.
I would say that a good game is never finished because you're never really learning everything you can possibly learn about your game and the potential for your game until you get the mass user base playing it and giving you feedback and telling them what you want. So if you are there in your studio and you have your play testers and you have your closed beta and then you release a game and it's done, there is then going to be millions and millions hopefully of comments and issues and bugs and all this sort of stuff that you could fix, that you want to continue to fix, and then you get taken down a path, and then more importantly you learn which direction your next game should go down based on the feedback from your first game. But if you say, well, this is it, we want to make it finished and perfect and polished and then release it, well then you're not going to get the benefits of that. That's not to say that that's an excuse to release a broken game.
This is the thing.
There's a sliding scale between you've got to get to a point where game that works and then game that's being perfected. And I'm arguing that there is no such thing as a finished game, and there shouldn't be. Yeah. But it's got to work.
Yeah, this is the thing, because we're in an era of gold editions and platinum editions and silver editions with early access, and the early access period didn't work in Test Drive's case.
Yeah.
We're mentioning Test Drive because it is actually the most read topic on our website in the past month. And I wouldn't mind, personally, if the game came out bare bones, but solid.
Yes.
And then
What we're getting is all these features at once, and some of them don't work.
I just think, like, back in the day, it was a bit easier because you had to just, it's going on a disk, it's not going to be updated, it needs to be ready. So it was almost like, when there's a really hard deadline and you just get it done, you just push it.
There was no excuse.
Even if something, you get a realistic timescale and you just absolutely have to push it like an exam at uni or school, you get it done.
Yeah.
Nowadays, because there's that kind of, there's that almost that safety net of but if it's not quite done, there's a day one patch, and if it's not quite there, we'll do a month 2 patch, or maybe we'll just call it early access. I feel like not having a hard deadline anymore allows the developers and the publishers to actually, it almost takes away that huge pressure that it needs to be done, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. But
no, because working conditions, we want them to be improved.
Exactly.
We don't want people sleeping at a desk.
And games, I'm very confident that games are way more complicated and complex to develop to a high level now, because all of the technology's advanced, the graphics look much better. All of the games have so many more things.
Online modes.
Bigger file sizes, more assets, more pixels than they did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So therefore, finishing a game is a much bigger project. And I just think that those things combine, and developers need money, publishers need money.
Yeah.
That they just need to get something out there. So it's always a difficult one, because if Test Drive was delayed more, people would be saying, "Oh, it's been delayed again and again," because it was already delayed for years.
I would say that I've noticed sentiment changing when games are delayed, and you get a lot of people saying, "I'd rather it was delayed."
Because you're right. It used to be, "Oh, it's been delayed. What a joke!"
Well, because people weren't expecting further evolution of a game, but I think the gaming market generally has shifted towards this model, not just sim racing. But then there's still a right and a wrong way to do it. I mean, not to pick on anyone in particular, but like, you don't want to go down the road of, it doesn't matter if the cars don't work, but let's put in animated liveries for, like, before we've launched the
not
product,
to pick on anybody, but
because that feels to me like extreme the wrong way round. But there's still a sliding scale, and I know it's interesting, because if you don't have a decent spectrum of engaging features, then you're not necessarily going to attract enough users to be able to get meaningful tests. So again, it's that sliding scale of, yes, you want it to be solid and working, but you kind of also need to have the hook. And that's why I think LMU is getting it right. I know that there is contentious. I know it's contentious, and people think that it's MSG.
I've got a thought about this.
And there's two schools of thought. But I like that they've got a VR option. It's hidden, but there is a VR option, and everyone knows about it. If you're searching for it, you'll find it. But it's hidden, so subconsciously you can't really moan too much that you've like typed in /VR to unlock this file, and it's not working. But they've gone with the hook rather than the base game content. And what I mean by that is they've gone with asynchronous multiplayer and
ranked online race
rather than a campaign, because everyone's kind of expecting a campaign. You kind of know what a campaign is.
Yeah.
You're going to do a series of races, a championship, and you're going to win or you're going to lose. And there might be a story mode, there might not, but there might be some element of management. Like, that's going to come, right? But that's probably not enough of a hook, I don't think, without the spectrum. So I don't know. I kind of like their approach, that they've gone a bit different, because I wouldn't necessarily risk my money on an early access game for a championship mode. But I might for asynchronous multiplayer, because I'm like, oh, that's cool, because I can go and play with my mates now and try this new thing.
Well, that's definitely the gamble they've taken. Interestingly, John completely disagrees with you.
Yes, and that's fine.
On our video that was released at the time of recording today, Inside Baseball, I've set you up there for a fall.
Asynchronous co-op is a cool feature, and it's not been seen before, but to me, adding something like a championship mode gives single player so much more replayability, and I think being able to do one race weekend and not be able to actually make it mean anything. So no race you do offline actually means something at the moment. And to me, it seems like a championship mode is I'm not a game developer, but to me that seems like something that should be fairly easy to string together. It's just lots of individual races, but with championship points. Done.
But does that mean anything if there isn't some kind of storyline or season management? Because without that, it's just a series of single races.
That would be the next step, right? That would be the full release. That would be great. But it's something that would make like at the moment, it's almost like a sandbox single player where you just jump in. It's almost like a hot laps sim with AI
Yeah,
and
it is,
races.
yeah.
You can't make something out of it. You can't live the life of a Porsche driver trying to win a championship in I don't know, last year's Glickenhaus. Like it's a bit different in that sense. I see where you're coming from.
I think you can now do something on LMU that you can't do in any other game.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think that's, for me, I thought that was smart. But I could be wrong. And you know, the Steam DB charts will tell us the answer as to what, you know, whether it's worked or hasn't. But, you know, if you want to do a championship mode, I mean, there's a whole episode we could do on what's the best campaign mode in a racing game. I always thought the F1 ones are pretty good. The Devon Butler and the planning for your, you know, you're going to upgrade your factory or your this, that, and the other, and then you get results down the line. All this sort. There's quite a deep, engaged story mode, and maybe LMU is not going for that tier of story-based racing game. It's going for sim racing, hardcore motorsport fans.
Lobbies,
And
no driver swaps online.
Totally agree.
Right, I'm going to mediate this. You're both wrong. The key thing to remember with Le Mans Ultimate is that until like 3 weeks before release, it was not going to be early access. So can you imagine? Can you imagine the uproar? So pulled a rabbit out of the hat, I think.
No, you're right.
In terms of that, and I actually think going back to the conversation about is there such a thing as a finished game, early access is wonderful on the one hand, but it can also be a rather convenient excuse. And I could be wrong here. I think we had a similar thing with GT Manager recently, which wasn't going to be early access, and then it is early access recently. We've got an article on the website which is feeling pretty meh about that game as well. And so we'll see how these games develop. It's amazing that the developers can update things after the fact and add to it and listen to feedback, but they can't do it too much because it sets a dangerous precedent.
It's the safety net thing, right? It's the whole, we can call it early access and then get away with it not being a finished product.
Right.
Therefore, we're going. So you were saying it was going to be a full game 3 weeks before release. I reckon it's not. Yeah. So 3 weeks, say 3 weeks before the release, they say, okay, we need to switch to early access. It could be early access now for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Beam and G just released version 0.33 after about 10 years. I'm exaggerating the years. Will we ever be alive at that rate of progress to ever see version 1? Probably not.
But we love what there is right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just a tag.
Right, we're moving on to some community questions. Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Not community questions, these are community comments. So recently we released a video of 5 strange or weird racing games that you can play on our YouTube channel.
Car games.
Car games, driving games, yes.
Not all racing.
There's What the Car, Pacific Drive, some really bad PS Vita game, and the wonderful Driver San Francisco.
Yeah.
And we're going to, as inspired by that, we put up a post on the YouTube channel community asking for what people's strangest games are. And we're going to read out a few of these and discuss.
The first one is wild. No, wait, hang on. You meant to say the last one will shock you.
The last one will shock you. We're going to go straight in by someone's username I cannot pronounce.
Achille Conte.
Achille Conte, thank you very much. Don't forget
4385.
He was the 4,385th Achille Conte.
That's his. That could be it could be their pin number.
Could be their pin number. Mini Mario Kart. Mini Mario Kart within Nintendogs on the Nintendo DS. I remember Nintendogs. You looked after a virtual dog. It was like a Pikachu.
Very simple. Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi.
You don't need to explain.
Tamagotchi.
Tamagotchi.
Okay.
But in there was a little.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm out.
That's all right.
Is that what the DS stands for? Nintendo.
Oh dear. R Majid said Extreme Express, which is a train racing game. I looked this up and it's wild. It's multiple tracks and you race against each other.
That sounds fun. It's like slot cars.
Kind of like slot cars. Yeah, I don't know how you would overtake or
it's actually like the old, the racing games of old where you didn't turn left and right, you just changed lane.
Right. Maybe
basically it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But on trains.
I'm curious. I'm hooked.
I'm not.
Christoph,
not to disagree with you again.
We've got an interesting dynamic that's been formed. Christopher C,
you mean?
Or Christopher C. Fantastic.
You're over
707 5.
Does YouTube do this? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 usernames that have a 4-digit number at the end.
A random thing that was changed there. But he's talking about roundabout. I've seen this before. It's like a limo driver, big long car. You drive around in circles. But the main point is, now I don't know how to pronounce this. Maybe you do, John. Chorokyu. Anyway,
that's Chorokyu. Yeah.
This is where, and this user says, Christopher C. says there's a whole series of these games. There are. I looked them up on Wikipedia. There's absolutely a ton of them. where you live your life as a car and talk to other cars in an open world.
Right.
And
Sounds like a film.
Ross Racing, I think I can pronounce that one, 6433.
Well done.
Ross McGregor's burner account.
Ross McGregor's burner account, yes. He said, definitely Road Trip Adventure on PS2. Now, I think that is a version of Choro or Coro Q, but that's what it was called here in Europe and the UK. And so I've been intrigued by this. We'll report back. I bought a used copy of PS2, £4 from Computer Exchange.
Wow.
It's arriving next week. We'll give this a shot. Zachary Starling, 6661, says Grip. Now, John
Great game.
has played this game.
I did
Have
play
you played
Grip.
this game as well?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't keen. I wasn't hugely keen. It was cool.
Well,
it
we're
was
not saying
fun.
best, we're saying weirdest.
Yeah, 100%.
It's set in space, I think, or whatever. It has a licensed MG car version.
It does. Yeah, which I drove.
Weirdest
I
licensing
drove
I've
on
ever seen in a game
I drove
ever.
on the Traxion video, actually, years ago. It's one of our early videos, so maybe watch it, maybe don't. It was good. Like, it was fun, and there was I loved the kind of almost like parkour challenge mode at the end. That was a bit more like BeamNG. So
I
one
can't
of
remember
the game modes was like you just have to get to the finish and survive, like an obstacle course, a little bit like Trackmania in a way.
Right.
And that was cool, but I just thought the racing, the high intensity, high octane racing, didn't really do it massively for me. So
Yeah.
anyway,
High
one-
octane.
I think we can
Can't
all...
go wrong with high octane.
No, that's true.
solutions.
One I think we can all relate to, S-Ban?
Well done, Span. Yeah, I don't
Span? Suggested Wreckfest. Now, it's not the most crazy, outlandish, weird, get off the wall, wacky. But I think we've all enjoyed it.
Great game.
And it is unlike other racing games in many respects.
That's we should start the Traxion Twitch channel up again and do some Wreckfest.
yeah.
Wreckfest Wednesdays. Wreckfest Wednesdays.
Wreckfest
Easy for you to say.
Wreckfest Wednesdays. It was racing a Portaloo is weird.
Yeah, or a
So
lawnmower.
you do weird things in it, but it's
Or a
not.
combine
It's
harvester.
not a weird game. It's just a good game.
Yeah. There's a sequel coming out, we don't know when, but we assume next year. That's a debate for another time.
Yeah.
What do you think the
2025 is
title
going to
will
be
be?
massive. It's called Wreckfest 2.
But then it's got to be like Return of the Debris
Lawnmower.
or something.
Yeah.
Return of the Portaloo.
Yeah. And final one I think we say is Quasimo. John?
Correct.
I think you got it right.
Right.
Star.
He
He's
mentioned,
getting better.
they mentioned possibly Trailer, which is like a Wreckfest kind of rip-off game. But they are developing it, or it is, the development team is developing a PlayStation version. I think it recently came out on Xbox, it's already been on PC. So we will check this out.
Okay.
We'll endeavour this. Not sure about this one. It looks like, you know how in China they've got like fake Starbucks and fake Apple
I
devices?
didn't know that.
Okay, well, there's a great Top Gear episode about that.
Is there?
Yes.
Fake everything.
Fake everything. It looks like that for Wreckfest. Okay, but we will see if actually, I have seen it's got positive reviews, so we'll check it out and see what it is. So thank you for your feedback, and if you go on, John.
I was going to say, I've got my own weird game I want to talk about.
Oh, go on, hit me. Is it the conflict game?
No, that's not weird. That's just brilliant.
Okay, fine.
Colored Grand Prix.
Right.
Yeah. Frosties.
They're great.
Frosties Grand Prix, actually. Anyway, no, I'm not going to... That's a whole other podcast, and I will talk about that for an hour. Bat Racer. Have you ever heard of that? It's an old
Never heard of Bat
browser-based management racing game where you can race different disciplines, Formula 1. Not going to get bogged down in it. It was brilliant. It was my childhood. Loved it. But they also came out with Bat Rally, or Bat Racer Rally.
Oh.
Now, it's a browser-based rally game, but you don't actually drive. You essentially drive the stages by decision-making. So every corner you get to, it takes into account the risk. So like if there's trees on the outside, you're more likely to crash if you attack the corner more. If there's wide open spaces, your risk is lower of crashing. And you decide how much you want to attack each corner based on the conditions and the tyre choice you have. So for example, I'll go into a corner and I have a needle between 0 and 100, and I see that it's open field, it's an open corner. I can attack at 100, and even if it goes wrong, I'll only lose a little bit of time, but I might gain a lot from being committed. Whereas if I try and go too aggressive around a corner in a forest and there's a tree, it's all based on probability and numbers, but it's all visualized, and you actually see the little dot going around down the stage. You're more likely to have a crash, and you'll lose loads of time on that stage. And there's like in between stages, there's car development and fixing parts. You choose your tire compound and everything. But it's really interesting because it's like a choice-based rally game where you drive the stage based on decisions of risk versus reward. And I just think that's fascinating.
Full review coming out next week.
You've sold it to me.
Yeah, it's about a decade old or more. But honestly, Bat Racer Rally, have a look at it. As a rally fan, it was great because I got the enjoyment and the thrill of choosing my risk as I went through a stage based on the conditions, based on my tyres, based on the competition, based on how many upgrades I had. Really great. And just
Browser-based
weird.
racing games feels like a feature video. That 5 best. It reminds me of Spanish lessons when I was a kid. And there was I remember our school guy's first computer room, and for some reason we used it for Spanish. Don't really know why. So we were studying Spanish, and obviously you'd all trying to like work out how you play games. There was like stick cricket and stuff, but there was one that was like a drag racing game, and you could like tune up your car, and then you'd race like
Drag Racer V3. I can't remember. It was like I think I was playing that like 2 months ago.
I mean, I've been very impressed if that's still.
There is a way.
The annoying thing was you couldn't save any progress because there was you couldn't log in because that was all blocked, and so you'd have to start again every Spanish lesson. So you'd have an hour to see how many cars.
If it's Drag Racer V3, we'll put it on screen. We'll put it on screen now if it's that game, and I'll show you after because I'd be curious. But yeah, there's some great Bowser based. Bowser. I mean, there's Mario Kart.
So let's touch upon one of the hottest, if not the hottest topic in sim racing at the minute. It is, of course,
Fanatec / Corsair.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm glad I was right. Second time I've been glad I was right.
I thought you were going to say something obscure.
The non-ultimate new update.
No. Like what the car, Dream Rally 2. Anyway, here we are. Corsair is a formerly purchased Endor AG. It already owned the Fanatec brand, to be clear, via a condition on some loans. That happened a month or two ago. Now the assets are all there. Company is liquidated. No one's going to get a penny if you're a shareholder. Controversial. But it does mean that Fanatec survives. I think for sim racing in general, I think this genre deserves Fanatec at its best. And let's hope Corsair can provide that. So, the big question is, what do we think, I'll start with you, Tom, Corsair needs to do to make sure Fanatec is in a better place and this doesn't happen again?
Well, I guess the biggest challenge facing Fanatec at the moment is its reputation.
Yeah.
A number of delayed products over the last few years that they made a big song and dance about. I know we have some of them listed, like the Bentley wheel, for example, the F1 cockpit that then never came out. The famously poor customer service for people that either haven't received things or have issues and problems with the kit that they have received. And then the whole Thomas Yakimaya CEO kickoff dispute. Obviously, none of this has been pretty.
Not a good look.
Not a good look for a company. And if you're getting into the sim racing world now, and let's say you've got, I don't know, an old T300 or a TSPC or a Logitech G29 on your desk, and you've been into sim racing for 6 to 12 months, and you've been looking for that first step up to direct drive, you're probably not going to be thinking Fanatec right now. There's a lot of people who will be put off, and they'll go to the likes of Moser, Simagic, Acetec, etc., just because Fanatec isn't necessarily a safe option, especially when sim racing equipment is such an ecosystem. There's so much to it. There's the firmware, the wheelbases, the wheel rims, the peripherals, the handbrakes, gear sticks, pedals, add-ons, upgrades. But there's so much to it that requires a very sophisticated company to put all that together and keep providing you with upgrade parts, etc. Fanatec, at the moment, is not looking particularly appealing. However, Corsair has a very good reputation, as I understand it. I know a few people there now, and I've unknowingly had their products for years and years. They've got a good reputation in the gaming peripherals market with keyboard, mice, headsets, etc. And so, and also they're a multi-billion-dollar company, right? This is not a sim racing size company. This is huge. This is bigger than anything else that exists. And so, the very fact that they've been bought by Corsair will go a long way to fixing those issues. But there's still some messaging, I think, to be done around it.
And also not just messaging. I think I agree, but it's fundamental supply chain issues, quality control issues, warrant, customer service. There's a lot of work to be done there. If it's just a branding exercise, we've got access to the sim racing market, it's not going to work.
No. But the thing is, Fanatec, I almost think they bought themselves a bit of time by releasing really useful products that can cover a lot of areas that other manufacturers haven't got to yet.
Well,
AKA
I would say,
console.
Yes, they are preeminent direct drives on console. And I know if you spend... For now, this is the thing, we'll get to that. But you're right. That if you're predominantly you bought a very expensive PC and a rig, you're not going to care about this topic of conversation. But I believe units sold, console's where it's at. And if you have Gran Turismo 7, which we believe are sold in excess of 10 million copies, massive, iRacing, you said massive in sim racing, right? But about 250,000, 250,000 subscribers, Gran Turismo is...
Yeah.
And Fanatec has a license and a direct drive wheel, which you use on a daily basis.
That's the thing. You'll see the Fanatec wheelbase in any of my videos at the moment, and it's because it works on PC, but it also works on console, and we sometimes do console videos. I like to play Gran Turismo 7 in my spare time, and it's good enough. And I've not had the reliability issues that Fanatec are sometimes known for. I've experienced it with other things. I've experienced it with wheels going wrong, things like that. So it's not like I have a perfect reliability record with Fanatec, but I have a good enough one that I trust the products that I own right now. Obviously, the problem comes with the lack of customer service. If Corsair didn't come in, Fanatec was just to disappear, that's a worry, because then if something does go wrong, what do you do? And you're in an ecosystem, and that's never going to be expanded on. If something breaks, you might be, ruined. So the concern for me was how long are they going to be dormant for, and is that going to essentially, are they going to lose all the momentum they had, which is people that are already invested in their ecosystem that would have to change everything to move somewhere else. As long as they can get up and running quickly and improve customer service whilst people still use their products, I think Corsair will be all right. Fanatec as a brand will be all right, but clearly, we know people that have had issues with customer service. Judging by our comment sections, there's a lot of you out there that have had big issues with customer service and with just ordering something and not showing up. It's well documented, and that is the first thing to me that needs to change. The reliability of the product is something else, and if Corsair can bring some of their expertise and the backing to improve that in future, I think they've still got a really solid line of products. Like even the latest Club Sport DDs that they've released reviewed very well. People seem very happy with
there's
them.
nothing wrong. And if you want a higher peak torque, direct drive wheelbase that also works on console, you're probably going to go for that.
And huge wheel options, like huge amount of different steering wheels,
ecosystem,
huge amount of pedal options, and I've got Fanatec CSL Elite V2s, brilliant pedals, no complaints for the value. So they're still in a position where the products are good. They just need to now keep the momentum.
I would counter that slightly and say you're absolutely right that the products are great, but they are falling behind the competitors.
Oh, yeah.
The past year of wrangling has helped no products. So I'm sure that the DD Ultimate, DD Extreme package was designed way in advance to when it was released at the start of this year. And you mentioned the Bentley wheel and the Formula One cockpit. Well, in the meantime, Formula One cockpit was announced 2022 at Spa. I was there, right? Playseat, in the meantime, has got an official Formula One license, released the product. Moser has a very similar wheel to the Bentley, without the Bentley badge on, called the Vision GS, is it?
Which is
released.
very smooth. That was the problem. I remember trying the Fanatec Bentley wheel in 2021, I think.
Oh, the animation.
And as you moved the wheel, it was very jittery and horrible, and you couldn't really see anything, whereas Moser have nailed it.
There's now it's come out through some IP filings. There was going to be a Porsche-related Fanatec wheel. I mean, Moses showed the prototype at Gamescom we saw, and we believe is going to be released by the end of this year. The Fanatec one's missing in the ether somewhere. And also, they're not only the only ones with direct drive on console, because we tried a prototype of a Thrustmaster device. We don't know when it's being released, all the details, but it's happening. And finally, Logitech has come out with some add-ons for its G Pro wheel. Better late than never.
Yep.
And there's one more, absolute giant, about to enter this space.
Of course, yeah.
Asetek.
Yes. Which we alluded to at the start, because we did a podcast with them.
So they're not safe.
No.
No one is safe in this market.
You're never too big to fail.
But are they being saved at a time where people that are committed to their ecosystem aren't having to switch away from their ecosystem? Because as soon as you lose that, it's impossible to bring people back. So are they doing enough now? And of course they're coming in. Are they going to do enough to keep people that already have a Fanatec ecosystem on that ecosystem? Because all they need is that in the next year or two, there's enough new products coming out that people don't feel the need to get rid of all of their kit. To me, that's a big thing.
Yeah, true.
I think the ecosystem thing is interesting because they're essentially, how I perceive them is that they're almost like the Apple of the
walled
racing world, is in that you have Fanatec everything. Whereas even Asetek, who came out with a full range of stuff, they've just done, they had like a whole, I remember 2022 Expo, they had this big display of all of these different wheels, and I'm just going to say examples of wheels, because I can't remember which ones are and aren't included, but it was like Cube Controls and GSI and VRS and these different types of wheels that you could then add on to the wheelbase. So very early on, they were talking about an open ecosystem and the firmware would interact with all of them, and they've just announced the Cube Controls. I think has just been announced, right? The bundle that they're doing with Cube Controls, and so
still higher end though for the compatibility. Right?
Yes, higher end.
Whereas I think Fanatec has this market really of mid.
Well, here's something. We haven't mentioned this in ages, but something that's been bubbling along in the background, which will also challenge Fanatec's market, I think, is Track Racer. Track Racer have been developing a set
This is a Track Racer seat right here.
It is. So Matt Sten from Track Racer gifted me that for Grid Finder way back when I first started the Sim Sundays podcast, only 3 years ago. He sent me that, and it's still going strong. So thanks again. But he has been working on a set of peripherals, so wheelbases, wheel rims, pedals, handbrake, gear shifter. I was fortunate enough to go out to Austin March earlier this year, and I went and visited their HQ and saw him and the team, and he showed me some of their equipment, and we used the wheelbase, and it's up there. It's there's no discernible difference because talk is talk, wheelbase is wheelbase, and I know that the sim racing absolute aliens will be spitting at their screens because I'm saying that all force feedback is the same, because I know it's not, and actually a lot of it's to do with the setup rather than the hardware. Yeah. And what they've got is in the ballpark of everything else, is what I'm saying. And so they're going to come in at a much lower price point. I know this already. He kind of talked me through where they're sourcing all of their equipment and their tooling and their manufacturing, and they're going to come in very, very competitive. And they're going to be able to do bundles with sim rigs, which is not something that other people are doing. Fanatec have a cockpit-style sim rig that we got to see in 2022, but that hasn't been released yet. That's been on the back burner because they're doing everything else that they're doing. And so I guess all of this is to say that, if you're Fanatec, you've still got work to do. It's not like, okay, thank God we've revived the brand of Fanatec and so we're safe. I don't think that's going to be the case.
And just because Corsair are huge, Logitech are huge. I think Logitech are bigger than Corsair potentially in terms of overall value and how what they're doing. But even then, it feels like Logitech sometimes are behind the boat with their sim racing hardware.
Oh, 100%.
And they're working on other things, but they've got a sim racing division, and things have been quite slow. And when they do come out, I would say solid if unspectacular.
Well, we don't know because, and I will say this on record, they're messing around with the review of the equipment. We'll speak to them hopefully in a few months, but it's been a disaster behind the scenes. I got an email yesterday that the person from a third party who was dealing with reviewing units has resigned. And now we don't know what we're doing with them. So that's why we haven't got a Logitech
we were going to
review.
bring you a Logitech review.
Yes, of the new products.
It didn't happen.
Also, Track Racer, I will point that, fantastic. I wish them well. We'll judge the products when they come out. But I've been hearing for 2-3 years about their new wheelbases. I've even tried a prototype before. And it's not here.
Yes.
It's not here. So I'm very disappointed.
They are coming back to Expo this year after a leave of absence last year. And I know... I'm sure you won't mind me saying this, but he was ambition to come with stuff that you can test and buy. So we might see a launch of Track Racer stuff in time for Christmas.
We'll be there, but let's see. I'll believe it when I see it.
That is the thing I've learned in racing game industry. Believe it when you see it.
A key thing with Corsair and trying to get Corsair to improve Fanatec is that you can only buy Fanatec really direct from Fanatec. Now, there are some third-party resellers. But Corsair sells a lot of its products and its Elgato and Scuff brands through Amazon. Prediction, that will happen with Fanatec with some bundles. Andy Paul, the CEO, said Corsair's expertise and resources will enhance the Fanatec product lineup and make significant improvements to logistics and customer service. Global availability of Fanatec products will expand through Corsair's extensive channels. So I'd love a nice PlayStation-compatible Fanatec wheelbase bundle with Amazon Prime delivery and not having to deal with Brexit charges, post-Brexit tax things.
That would be a game changer.
Yeah, and that would really help. And also in America, if it's available on there, I think that'll be the route they go down. Let's see. So I think they need to fix a lot of things first, but that's what I think they will go.
Sponsorships? They sponsor everything, every racetrack, every race series.
I don't want to get into trouble.
And now they are having to be bought out to survive. So it's kind of,
Yeah, I don't want to get into trouble, but have you noticed that the Fanatec Esports SRO Championship with the physical thing isn't on this year? So that does a lot of talking. So
where's the Valkyrie? Want the Valkyrie back to Expo this year?
Yeah, we'll not go there because that's Thomas Yakimas.
The Fanatec party after the Expo might be a little different this year.
They'll bring the beers, but you will have to pay for them.
I suppose final point on this is Corsair has been developing its own cockpit or rig for a long time. We saw it at Gamescom.
It's great.
We both did actually. Looked very promising. So now it remains to be seen, is it going to be bundled in with the range or whatever? Don't know. We will try and ask questions in October.
I would predict that there will be no such thing as a Corsair sim rig.
Yeah, it's Fanatec.
It will become a Fanatec sim because why?
There's a gap in
why
the
would
range.
you have a sim racing brand, a controller brand, a peripherals brand, and then have your parent company own a random element of the sim racing brand? It wouldn't make much sense.
So just to kind of, I guess, summarise this, but with Corsair and Fanatec now then, do you think the priority with Fanatec should be to innovate and create new products that change the game or move forward, or do you think it should be stability?
I think it's going to be
because essentially it's a question of, do you sort the people that are already on board, or do you try and bring new people in and compete?
No, I think they have to, in my opinion, steady the ship.
Yeah.
Get all the supply chains and manufacturing and reliability and because whatever concerns are sorted. It does mean, however, if we've already said that they've been behind the pace recently, it's going to be another year of transition.
But they can just look at what Moser are doing and copy it.
Which some might say
the irony.
Yeah. Right. Sounds like a good note to end on. Before we do, we just want to mention that the winners of the inaugural Traxion livery competition
there will be more.
Have been decided.
There were a lot of great submissions.
Yeah, a lot of great submissions. People won some Traxion sim racing gloves. The actual winner won 100 euros, and they said 100,000 euros.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
I'm going to enter next time.
Another pronunciation help, please. How do I pronounce this name?
Escidis
Design?
Ecdysis.
Thank you very much.
ECDYSIS Design.
Ecdysis actually has an email in their inbox from me asking for this exact livery, but on the McLaren GT3 Evo right now because it's
lovely.
So nice.
We'll bring it up on the screen as well.
So we had a load of wonderful entries. This will be not the final one. These were also, in partnership with Gridfinder. So the entries were on the Gridfinder livery marketplace, which is live now. Have a browse. And stay tuned for further updates. But just thank you very much for all the entries.
Yes, and if you're a livery designer, do stay tuned because the next one is... I can't say exactly what it is, but it is incredible. It's a two-phase thing. The winner will essentially get a commission to create a livery on a real-world car racing in a top-flight racing series in the US, driven by an incredibly famous racing driver for the endurance race in November. So very cool. An endurance race in November. Yes. I know that's very, very woolly and vague, but cool.
You can join the dots.
Yes.
So thank you very much for watching and listening. All that remains to be said is that for feedback and future questions or format ideas, maybe debates for Tom and John to get going, email podcast@traxion.gg. If email's not your thing, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Are you abstaining from debate?
I'm just mediator.
John disagrees with you, by the way. He's not heard your argument, but I'm telling you he disagrees with you.
Start the argument.
I'll argue with you by now.
I'm impartial.
This is fiery.
I am the BBC.
Oh, good. Oh, that's going to start. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, the comments.
Also, we'd love you to join the Traxion Discord, traxion.gg/Discord. Thank you very much for your time. Quick thoughts before we rejoin next month?
Oh, I wasn't ready for that.
No.
Quick thoughts.
Merch.
We're gonna have merch soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
We got and then it's interesting merch, not boring merch.
Cool. If we were professional, we would have made it in advance and worn it, but we were not. So stay tuned. Thank you very much.